This is the intro I came up with, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Welcome to Tabletop Shop.
Hello and welcome back to the Tabletop Shop podcast. This week on the pod with our reviewing hats on, we're tackling Spirit Island, one of the heavier cooperative games out there. Then we sit down and analyze some of the interesting aspects of our top 100 lists and our 2023 plays. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nate Clark, and as always, seated across the country from me is your other co-host, Mr. Cody Pennington.
I just want to say that I didn't interrupt you at all throughout that whole intro, although I could have. Calling the podcast The Pod is kind of a suspicious choice.
You just gotta mix it up every once in a while, Cody. You know, I thought about pausing at the end and expecting you to say your own name just as a little throwback joke, but like I paused for like a second and a half and I was like, I'll just say it. Like
it wasn't uncomfortably long, but I thought I would just wait.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Cody, question for you.
Yeah, dude.
Do you, and this is a fitting question actually for what we're talking about today. Do you own all of your top 20 games? And
whoa, okay.
You can go look. It should be pretty quick for you to check. Do you own all of your top 20 games? Should everyone? Do you think that's something that anybody who has compiled a list, at least of their top 20, do you think that people should own those also? If they're saying, these are my 20 favorite games, should they own them?
I'm going to, right off the bat, say no, because maybe you had a friend that taught you Gloomhaven or Twilight Imperium, and they own it. And then maybe because they already own it, there's no need for you to go spend $150 and buy it for yourself. So purely off of that, I don't think it's necessary. But otherwise, if you really like a game and it's, your average reasonably priced game, you should probably own it if it's in your top 20.
Yeah, those are the extreme cases, right? Where you have something that's maybe out of print or whatever, and you play somebody else's, like, yes, you are allowed to like that game even if it's not really possible for you to acquire it.
Sure. Or what if you can only play it digitally? What if you have Board Game Arena, or maybe there's an app version for the game that's like $5 and you bought it? Does that count as owning it?
You kind of own it then, I would say. Like, you have access to play the game whenever you want. And you pay something for it, so I would say you own it then.
But on BGG, where you can have a collection, you can add something to collection under own. Would you then, if you only own it digitally, put it as owned?
I think you can. Can. I would say so. And you can even you can add notes to your collections. You could even say digital version or whatever if you really wanted to get picky about it. But Cody, do you own your top 20?
Let me look here. Starting from the top, you will hear me say yes or no up to 20 times.
This will be exciting. Go for it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, yes. No.
Your number 20 is a no?
No, 18 is 18. No. That was Terraforming Mars.
Okay. Why don't you own Terraforming Mars?
Because we have Ares Expedition, and I'm not saying Ares Expedition completely replaces Terraforming Mars, but it replaces it enough to where whenever we buy a new game, there's other things higher on the list.
That I understand, actually. I definitely understand that. Yeah.
Thanks for validating that, dude. Do you own your top 20 games?
I definitely do not own all of them. I think I own my top 10. I'm going to say, just checking real quick, I do own my top 10. The first game I do not own is 14, and I do not own my 20. So just 2.
Wait, do you own Viticulture?
And Viticulture. I don't own that either. Skipped over
that. That's your top 10, dude.
That is my top 10. Spoilers. All right.
Oh, dang.
Should we get into what we played this week?
Yeah, let's do it. I actually have quite a few.
I do as well.
We also haven't recorded for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So I guess let's actually, we say this every week, and we're already a few minutes into the podcast. Let's actually try and make a point of not spending more than a minute or so on each game.
Okay, I'm gonna let you set the pace. You go first.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So I played 4 new games. I actually sorted them by worst to best. Okay, I felt like doing that. So 4 new games. First is Cat in the Box. This is a pretty recent trick-taking game with a little twist, which is that there's no actual colors. At least all the cards are black and white. You can still play colors, but you just say what color it is when you play it. And so you can any card can be whatever color you want, but every single combination, like a green 7 can only ever be played once. You have to mark it on a little board when you play green 7 or whatever. So only every possible combination can only be played once. And so everyone's playing these cards, and if you don't want to play what's led, it's a typical follow the lead, then you say, okay, I don't have any greens, but then you have to mark that on a little player board saying you don't have any greens, and now you cannot play green for the rest of the game. And so it's this kind of meta, kind of like not entirely all physical components, right? You're making up the colors in your hand depending on what you need. And then there's this side component where you're marking the specific cards you play with tokens, and that's a grid. And there's another little kind of side midi game where you're trying to connect your tokens on that grid. So you're trying to play specific cards in specific colors that are adjacent to cards you've already played. It's a weird little thing. I was pretty excited to play it when I heard about it about a year ago. A little disappointed it wasn't as exciting or interesting. The twist wasn't as interesting as I was hoping. But I know some people really love this game, so that's subjective.
Is it worth having?
I don't know if I would say it's worth having. I don't know if I would say that. Also because I don't know if it works so well at lower player counts also. So
I just realized that's just such a burn. What if you met the designer on the street? Looks like Monoyuki Yokoichi, and you just told him your game is not worth having.
Cody, in West Virginia, I don't know if I'm going to meet anybody named Monoyuki or whatever you said. I find that highly unlikely. Okay.
I didn't think of that.
Next up, Pulsar 2849. Now, I'm expecting to like this game more in the future.
Okay.
Right now, I don't know where to be on it because I've only played it once. And Suchi games are like this for me. It was the same with Messina 1347. I played it once, and after the game ended, I was like, okay, next time I play this, I'll actually kind of know what I'm doing when I start doing stuff, But basically, it's a dice drafting game. And I'm not even going to get into the drafting mechanism because it's actually rather a little complicated and without a visual aid, very difficult to explain. But there's a cool dice drafting mechanism. And then there's a ton of different things you can do with those dice. But it's tighter. It's not like Castles where you have a lot of kind of flexibility. It's a little more punishing and it's a little more, but you're drafting the dice, right? So you have more control over what you get. But basically you are doing a bunch of different stuff with these dice. There's a little bit of like galactic exploration and getting some points out of that and exploring planets. But that's a minor part. A bigger part is a lot of these techs that you can unlock using the dice. And there's other facets to the game. There's end game goals. There's these like transmission tiles you can buy that give you extra dice and other bonuses, repeating effects. It feels very abstract. It's got a space theme, and it's also weird. The main board is you have your little rocket ship that's going around exploring. That's actually not like the main focus of the game, like I was saying, though, which is a bit strange because it's a big board and that takes up a lot of space. But the stuff on the perimeter of the board, the text and the transmitter tiles and all this other stuff is actually kind of more important for the most part, maybe a 50-50 split. So it's not super heavy, but it's just so weird, that I'm excited to play it again and get it back to the table and kind of approach it with a strategy instead of, figuring out the mechanisms while you're playing. So
yeah.
Next up.
Oh, okay.
I got 2 more, baby.
I was waiting for the next one.
World Wonders is my next one. This is an Arcane Wonders game. It's basically just a polyomino game. You're drafting polyominoes, playing them on your mat, and then trying to meet requirements to build World Wonders based on the colors and the other geographical things on your board. And you're just kind of trying to fill up your board as much as you can. You're trying to surround tiles for points. There's endgame scoring things you're trying to reach, based on all the different possible things you could think of for a polyomino game and scoring, right? Lots of different stuff. And then you're also getting these World Wonders, which are these cool printed, screen printed, painted wooden structures. There's a ton of them, and you're kind of trying to meet the requirements for those so you can put them on your board and they take up more space. And basically just a big polyomino tile drafting game. Nothing too special about it, I would say, but it was an enjoyable experience nonetheless. A lot of maintenance in the game, though. A lot of maintenance, a lot of sorting tiles and flipping tiles, and yeah.
Was this played at a game night?
It was, yes. Why?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. I also played World Wonders. Just gonna interrupt. I know you have another game, but it's because we, as Tabletop Shop, received a copy for free from Arcane Wonders.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to do a review on it soon.
But you haven't
So
played
I
it
wonder. No, I have played it.
Okay.
Yeah.
right,
So I'm just curious if the person you played it with also like got a review copy or something.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
Like, it's been out for a while, like at least a
Really?
year, I think. Yeah.
Why
I
are they
think
sending
so.
out? I thought it was 2023. Why are they sending out review copies now? They should have done that earlier.
Well, I'm sure they send out
Okay.
early review copies, and then they send out more to get more kind of attention brought to it, I would assume.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel a lot less cool now.
You're not getting those pre-released Kickstarter
it,
prototypes
man.
like back in the Way Brother days. All right, last but not
okay.
least, I believe this also came out last year. It's so funny. This one I also played at a game night, and literally the day before, I think I had seen it on a Dice Tower list, and I was looking into it, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. This is the White Castle, another dice drafting, I guess, dice allocation game, whatever you want to call it, dice placement, and a lot of different cards. There's some tableau building. There's some making actions better by removing pieces and putting them on the board. There's different workers that you use dice and you can get workers off your board, and those workers can do things on the board, usually generating points and resources. But when those workers come off the board, they improve actions that are also on your board. And then there's this whole card system where the actions are constantly rotating, kind of, and you can pick up cards that are main actions and add them to your player board and do stuff with them. It's kind of just a mishmash of different mechanisms, but wow, it blends so well, and the game looks amazing. It was fantastic, and I really, really want to play it again. It wasn't even that complicated, but there's so many different things that are combined, and there's so many things that you want to accomplish that you can't accomplish all the way, right? And so most good games have this, where you can see the end of a lot of different possible, tracks that you could pursue. You're not going to get to the end of all of them, so you're picking and choosing, and it's just great, and the game looks amazing. Yeah.
Does
Really,
it sort of feel
really
like
good.
Tapestry in that way?
No, I meant tracks in more of it was just a word that came to my head. I didn't mean it necessarily in a specific tracks sense, but in more of a different avenues that you can pursue, right?
Okay,
and there are
gotcha.
end goals at all of those avenues, big points that are waiting for you and stuff, but you're not going to get to the end of all of them, right? So tracks is like the very physical, exact manifestation of that. But,
Yeah.
as a more general strategy avenue thing, that's in all games. So
I'm looking at it now. I like the little bridge things. Are those?
yeah, no, those are
like
standard. Yeah.
Plastic?
No, they're cardboard.
Oh, okay. I'm less thrilled now. They still look cool though.
No, I think it'd be a little chintzy if they're plastic. They look good.
Well, I guess maybe not plastic. I was imagining like the tapestry kind of. What would you call those buildings? Not acrylic.
Yeah, I don't know. Not
Whatever those
not
things
resin.
are.
I don't know. It's kind of some weird, softer, plasticky, nice texture. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But the box is also really small. Not really small, but it's smaller than Castle's Burgundy size. It's smaller than that. But the game packs a punch, and there's a lot of replayability in there too, because there's a lot of different things you can explore. So, very pleased with the White Castle. Thinking about buying it, but definitely want to play it some more.
Okay. Well, thanks for the tip. I'm writing that down. It's
Yeah,
going on
man.
the list. Well, the checkout list. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Check out like
Okay,
it's in the
well-
cart. Check out or
No, check out to determine if I will check it out.
okay, got it.
Yeah,
Clear.
you know what I'm saying. Now, Nate, I wasn't keeping track of how long you spent on each specific game, but I do know that it's been like 9 minutes at least now.
Yeah, it
Divided
averaged
by
closer
4.
to 2.
Yeah, come on, dude. Okay, so now it's my duty to speed run. Played Red Rising. You already talked about Red Rising. I was pretty disappointed. I'm going to blame you because you told me I should get this game. I'm glad I only spent $15 on it. And this might be kind of ironic why I didn't like it, but I did not get the thematic connection. I know your deal with Fantasy Realms is you don't think it's thematically, like it doesn't score thematically. I do think it scores thematically, but I did not have that experience with Red Rising. Probably because I know nothing about the book series, and so why a given character would score off of another character had just like no meaning for me. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of the rest of the game just felt like sort of a disappointing version. of Fantasy Realms.
Really?
It was interesting that there were other things going on. Like you could put down influence and you could advance on the fleet track, like some extra scoring things. But it all just kind of felt more like a distraction to me from the nice, smooth experience that Fantasy Realms offers.
Okay.
And I guess I'm not just trying to trash it against Fantasy Realms. Even if I had never played Fantasy Realms, I think I would have been pretty bored with this game.
Well, I don't think I enjoyed the game for any thematic reason either. Like, I know nothing about the book series it's based on either.
Sure.
I guess I didn't even really think about the fact that it wasn't too thematic because I just didn't even care. But it's the same with Fantasy Realms. Like, I don't care that Fantasy Realms isn't thematic either. Like, I've brought that up as a negative thing a few times because when we're talking about games that don't have theme or whatever, it comes up. But to me, that actually doesn't even matter that much. Like, if the game's good, I like it. And so for me,
so you just don't like Fantasy Realms then?
I just don't like fantasy. Like, I think Fantasy Realms is a good concept, but I think after a few plays, I'd be done. I'd be checked out. I felt like Red Rising had a lot more replayability because there's a lot more cards, and they all have two powers. They have, an action and they have a scoring thing, and there's a lot more interaction going on within the cards themselves. So it felt like a step up from Fantasy Realms with a lot more replayability, but still a solid design, is what I thought.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I could see someone liking it, but it just didn't do it. Just didn't do it for me.
Too
It's hard
bad.
to even articulate other than what I already articulated. But yeah, Red Rising is not rising on the list for me. It's red lowering. All right, game number 2 I played, Turing Machine. Do you know much about this game?
Honestly, I know nothing. Is it abstract? Because it seems like I'm picturing the cover and it seems like an abstract game.
Well, it's abstract in that computers don't really have a theme to them.
They have a computer
So-
theme. What are you talking about?
Well, okay, sure. It's not like there's really much going on besides logic. It's just a logic game. It's a very cleverly designed logic game. So there's going to be an answer, some 3-digit code. Each of the digits can only be 1 through 5. So it's not like there's not 1,000 possibilities for what the number is going to be. It's whatever 5 times 5 times 5 is. What is that? 125? There's 125 possibilities, Nate.
Sure.
But then how you get to that point, it's sort of a Mastermind-esque experience, but a little bit more complicated. Have you played Mastermind?
I have,
You know
yeah.
what I'm throwing out? Okay, so kind of like that, to where there's 4 different proofs that you can test against that are randomized for the game. And one of those proofs might be the middle number is odd or even. So you can take your 3-digit guess, make your middle number either odd or even, and then test it against all these little, there's like different cards that you put together for what your guess is that all have punches in them. So you can lay it over a key to get either a yes or no. It's kind of hard to describe without you just like looking it up or seeing a video.
Is this a solo game?
Okay, that's a complaint about it. I'll get to that in a second. No, it is a group game.
Okay.
But all that to say, you can't figure out exactly, is the middle digit 2? It's like you have to figure out, is the middle digit even or odd? And then is the right digit like greater than the sum of the other digits? So it's this very complicated brain game where you can never find out exactly what a digit is. It has to all be deductive reasoning based off of everything else.
Okay.
So all that to say, it's supposed to be a group game, but I'm just playing it in Board Game Arena. This is just a puzzle. It's not even a game. It's just a logic puzzle.
That is
Like,
exactly what I was thinking while you were explaining it.
Yeah. I have a really tough time considering this a board game, or even if you can play the digital version, why you'd buy the physical version, because it's the equivalent of like playing Minesweeper or something. I enjoyed it. It was a fun challenge, but in terms of being a group activity, just like no.
It sounds like something that would be designed as a computer game or an app. And then the question would be like, why would you ever want a physical version?
Yeah. I mean,
Weird.
the physical version is cool for how it works. Like it's impressive how it's designed, because you have to take all these cards that match up to the digits 1 through 5 for each of the 3 slots and then lay them over each other. So it really is like a feat of engineering. But
Sounds
as
like a lot of
gamer,
work,
you
too.
You don't really care, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So mixed feelings about Turing Machine. I don't know if I'm even going to include it like in a ranking of games, because it's hard to actually consider it a game or not.
Yeah,
other
I
than
understand.
activity. But Yeah. Anyway, I spent a long time of that. So Nucleum is the last game I played. Nucleum, yeah, baby. I think I dropped this in at like number 12 on my top 100 after playing it.
So it's worse than Carnegie.
Well, yeah, one rank less than than Carnegie.
Objectively worse, Cody. Doesn't matter.
Sure. There's a lot going on in this game. It felt like, you haven't played Barrage, but it had a lot of aspects of Barrage, which makes sense because it's Simone Luciani, who did Barrage, mixed with Brass. A lot of elements of both, and then whatever random stuff David Terzi brought to the table. He did Anachrony.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So it's this impressive mishmash of stuff going on. So you've got networking, you've got this very interesting like action selection thing where you start off, depending on which player board you have like 5 somewhat unique player tiles or worker tile things that you shove into your own board. You plug them into this little slot, and you can activate 2 abilities for each of those tiles, and they all have different abilities. And then depending on how many of those you do, those slots you're plugging them into, they qualify you for a higher level of income at the end of the round if you also move up income markers underneath those slots. So it's this cool little double system. But wait, all those little worker tile things you're using, you can spend them permanently on the board, flip them over, and use them as a network. But they give you a one-time ability based off of what's on the tile in the first place. So there's already a couple things intertwining going on there, but then you have all these technologies you're shoving in on the left side of your board. There's sort of I don't know, like, well, you haven't played Barrage, so it's not going to make sense to you, but sort of a Barrage style, you generate energy on a given single specific action, and depending on how much energy you generate, you get to power up buildings, and then those flip over and give you other bonuses. It's very fun.
So does this
contract fulfillment?
Does this feel like listening to the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, where you're like, oh, okay, Hans obviously took this from Gladiator, his other work. Does it feel like that, where you're like, oh, this is Barrage 2.0?
It's hard to say, because I was thinking about this for Shem Phillips games and Sam McDonald. All of their games are basically the same style. You know, if you played any other type of board game and then played Garfield games, they're all, like, each of those games are a little bit different from each other, but they all incorporate like multi-use cards, different uses of like workers, and you know, there's stuff that's going on that's kind of the same.
Maybe accepting Viscounts.
I mean, Viscount still has a bunch of multi-use cards, for sure. Like, they go very heavy on the...
I wonder how much of that opinion you're saying right there is affected by the fact that the games all look very, very similar to each other.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that definitely impacts it. I think they still fit very strongly in a style. And why I bring all that up is I don't think that's a negative against Simone Luciani to say that this has aspects very similar to Barrage, because it's definitely a different game. Well, I feel like maybe if he just has a certain style of the way he thinks about how a game should work, it does mirror that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. You know, it could be he looked at Barrage and he was like, there's a lot more I want to do with this mechanism, but I don't want to make a Barrage 2nd edition because I think Barrage is good, and I want to explore more stuff that makes the game very different. So kind of taking a core mechanism and building another game around it. And I mean, I don't have a problem. Even if you took that mechanism from a different designer, like, there's no intellectual properties on mechanisms, you know, that's all fair use.
Sure.
So like, it's a compliment even if somebody sees a mechanism they like and they take it and twist it and use it, you know? So.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough other things going on in Nucleum that it's definitely not like a Barrage 2.0. It's just you can see some aspects that are like, oh yeah, I recognize that. But definitely a solid game and well-priced game. This was under $50.
Really? It's so new, too. Wow.
Yeah, very new. A lot of stuff in the box. I definitely went over 1 minute talking about this.
Cody, I think you've been over 10 here total. So,
let's see, 14. I think you and I both spent about the same amount of time talking about our games. So
well, we better get on to the game of the week then.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, Game of the week, already mentioned in the intro. This is Spirit Island. This is one I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet, actually. Honestly, Cody, why have we not talked about this game yet?
Because we've talked about other games.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we talked about things like Aquatica. I mean, it's not like one of us was waiting to play Spirit Island before we could talk about it. I just don't know why we haven't gotten to it. But here we are.
That's a good point. I don't have an answer.
Okay. Here we are with Spirit Island. I'll give a brief overview, even though you've probably played it more recently than I have.
Probably, yeah.
This is a cooperative game. It's a very heavy game where you each take on the role of a spirit that is trying to basically kill, kick off, whatever, these settlers, these colonizers that are coming and building towns and stuff that are colonizing, that are settling your island. So you're playing as a spirit trying to get rid of them. So the colonizers are the bad guys. There's a very overt theme message here. The colonizers are the bad guys, and you collectively are using your different unique powers. It's a very, very asymmetrical game. You're using your unique powers and cards and all these different things to kill. I guess you're killing. I don't know thematically if you're killing them, but to kill and banish as many of them and their settlements and everything as you can. That's the very brief overview. It's a like I said, it's a highly asymmetrical game, and it's not like Root where it's like, okay, there's just 4. It's I don't know how many come in the base game. At least 8, maybe more, very different factions, I guess you would say, spirits that all play very, very differently and have different levels of complexity as well. That's Spirit Island. I feel like that was a very brief but maybe good enough summary.
I think that was pretty good. There is, I'll just throw in there, a fear mechanic in the game that is pretty signature for it, to where there's different levels of how you win the game. The game gets easier to win the later it gets because you increase the level of fear, which reduces the requirement you need to win the game, but you're also running out of time. And I think if you throw that in there, collectively, we have effectively described Spirit Island.
Well, let's dive right in then with our pros, Cody, with the things we love, the things we like. The first and most obvious, probably the first thing you wrote down as well, I would assume, is the art. And I would even say the production value kind of goes hand in hand with this. I will say I don't like, at least in the version we played, and I don't know if this is standard or not, the little colonizers, the little bad guys, are like these little plastic minis. But they're kind of flimsy and they seem kind of cheap. The rest of the game looks great. Great player colors, wooden pieces, the art is tremendous. I absolutely love the art. And everything else about the production I think is pretty good. But that's something about Spirit Island that really always, it's the first thing I think about when I think about the game. I'm like, that is a very good looking game.
Okay, you know what's weird is I did not mention the art anywhere in my list of either likes or dislikes.
That is so funny.
But I will definitely agree that this is impressive production.
Okay, but obviously not memorable.
I think I was just focusing on other things. Like now that you bring it up, I'm like, oh yeah, there is some pretty cool art in here. But yeah, besides that.
Invalidating my point. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the first thing I put down was the asymmetry, actually. I think it's cool that there's a common objective for everybody. It's like well, I guess most cooperative games, of course, they have an asymmetric aspect, but this goes hard on the asymmetric aspect. Everybody's trying to get to the same point to win, but everyone contributes in very different ways depending on what like spirit you're playing as. Like the one game that you and I actually played together, you had the guy who you didn't even actually like kill or remove settlers or anybody from the island. You just kind of pushed them around using fear, so other people could then just like wipe them off the map. That's cool.
I was the assister as far as like I can push people around a lot wherever they needed to go, but also I was generating a lot of fear also, which is an important aspect of the game, even if it's not like the most direct way to win. But yeah, you're right. They're very, very, it's also my point as well. So many different, vastly different, very unique play styles, and that I love because it really increases replayability, right? The problem is the same. The way the game works will be the same as far as how the enemies come out and what they do, but how you react to them is very much determined by what character you have and that puzzle that's associated with that character. And I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, my second point kind of plays off of that. I think it's just really satisfying when you do well at the game. If you can get some good moves, some good combos, if you're taking the pieces off your board so you're uncovering more abilities and you're slowly getting these cool, like powered up cards, you can play all those and do a bunch of things in one turn and just like swipe off a bunch of settlers and houses and cities. Like,
Yeah.
that feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this game gives you opportunities to do that.
And it gives you this kind of, you feel good, like you're helping, right? There's other people that are doing effective things, and whenever you have a chance to be effective, you're like, okay, I'm actually participating. I'm actually involved in us winning this. We're all collectively working together. You compare this to something like the crew. The crew is like, okay, we're all working towards something, but I have my personal goals I'm trying to achieve. Hey, if everybody achieves their personal goals, we win, you know? It's a very kind of solo cooperative game in a way. This is a very cooperative game.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Next thing I'll say, okay.
I think that was your thing.
Oh, you're just playing off my thing. Okay, you take the next point.
Well, this is my last point. The enemy system. Now, to be fair, I think the enemy system is maybe a little bit convoluted, and I'll get to that. Maybe that's not even the right word, but I'll talk about that a bit later in the cons section. But I think it is a very intricate system, and it's a very interesting system where you have these enemies that are flipping over different terrain types, which represent the different terrain types on the randomly assembled board, I think. And those terrain types are put into different action slots that determine what the enemy will do, and every round they shift. And so you know what actions are coming up and what terrain types that are going to trigger in those action slots. So you know, other than the card that's being flipped over for the current round, you know what other actions specifically the enemies are going to do and for the next couple rounds. And so it gives you this foreknowledge, and you can already react prematurely, right? Prepare for what they're going to do. It's very, very cool system.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to put down, the event deck, whatever you call it. That thing. I do like that very much. The fact that you can plan 2 turns ahead, because this is a hard game to win. There's a lot going on, a lot you have to think about, a lot you have to do. It's really important that you understand, okay, let's see, I can move these guys off this spot or wipe them off this spot, and they're going to appear next on this spot, so I need to get my influence moved over here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The final thing I will say is I think the fear system is cool. The fact that winning gets easier the more fear there is and the later in the game. That's interesting because it's paired against the fact that you're also running out of time. So it's kind of this double climax that appears with the game. I haven't really seen that system implemented in many other places. Because, I mean, you have like have you played the Forbidden series, like Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert?
I've played Desert, yeah.
Okay, so there's like the aspect of it's like sand is slowly filling up everything, so you know you're running out of time. But winning isn't getting any easier. Like, you still have the same objective. So it's cool how Spirit Island takes that aspect and then adds to it. If you're doing well, you can make it easier on yourself as time goes on.
Yeah.
Those are my likes.
That's it for me, too. So
right.
Let's talk about cons here. For me, the biggest one, I think, is that it's very rules heavy. In a way, you need somebody to run this game. You know, in a sense like Gloomhaven, we've talked about this before, where it's like there isn't technically somebody running the game, but there's so many rules and there's so many little details that you need somebody who knows it inside and out so that not everybody has to, right? And to me, that is a negative aspect to a game. Same thing with Gloomhaven. It's a negative aspect that there's one person who kind of runs it, right? Either that or everybody has to put in a lot of effort to really know the game inside and out. So,
yeah, that can make it not super fun, especially when it's paired with my dislike right here that I'll put down, is the game itself, besides all the rules, it's just hard. This is a hard game to win. You're already trying to remember how to do everything correctly, but it's not an easy feat to actually win the game.
Do you, Cody?
And I appreciate... Huh?
I was going to say, do you know what this kind of simulates to me? The feeling this kind of simulates? It simulates like playing Call of Duty Zombies or something.
I was going to ask if that's what you were going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this slow creeping sense of like, it's starting to feel overwhelming, panic starting to set in. How am I going to combat this? There's too many, you know? Like and in a way, that's one of the things I love about something like zombies, it's also one of the things that I like. It's a little anxiety inducing, right? So
Except zombies, there is no hope. Eventually, you will lose. But that kind of just gave me an idea, dude. What if we made a game, or what if there already is a game that there is no winning? You just see how many rounds you can survive.
I wonder if people would like that
be
or
interesting.
not. I really don't know, because
I don't know.
it works in a video game, but I don't know, man. I really don't know. It's a good question. I'd wonder if something exists already that's like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe if it was like some sort of campaign-esque game or like a legacy thing, to where depending on how far you got the first time, that has some sort of effect on like the following round. I don't know.
I think there needs something conclusive. Otherwise, I think people wouldn't be interested after a while, but I don't know.
Maybe eventually there's some way to ultimately win. But enough. This isn't the game design podcast. Go listen to Gabe Barrett's thing if you want that. This is the We Talk About Whatever We Want podcast.
Which could be game design sometimes.
It could be. But as I was saying, this is a hard game to win. And how that's a dislike for me is the whole game just feels like a long slog. Like there's a lot of cool things you can do, but ultimately it just feels like the stress is loaded so high that after just playing it a couple of times, it just kind of went out of my memory. Like I just didn't care to play it again. And that's kind of a negative for me. I think if there was like a streamlined version of this, to where it's a little bit easier to manage, you could maybe even play the game a little bit quicker, I might be more willing. But as is, there's like, Spirit Island, so much going on.
Yeah. My next point is one that I feel like a lot of people could disagree with. But for me, it feels a bit, despite how good the game looks and how good the theme is depicted, the game feels kind of abstract to me when I'm actually playing it. What the game becomes is just this goal of trying to get people off the island, which sure is the theme, but I'm not really thinking about that. It's kind of just like, how do I make the mechanisms work together? How do I maximize my effectiveness? What cool combinations can I find? But it really doesn't become about what the theme is about to me. I'm not thinking about what the cards thematically are doing when I play them. I'm just like, okay, this I can combine with that, which sets me up to do this. Okay, let's do that. And the theme kind of gets lost in all that for me, and I think that's something that rightfully so I could see a lot of people might disagree with.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite feel that, but I can see where you're coming from. If it just gets to the point where you're just focusing on all the mechanisms and you're just moving the pieces, I could see you kind of dropping out of the
And that could be
atmosphere.
Any game, right? And the heavier a game is, the more likely I think it is to fall into that category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it just becomes a job to run,
right.
That definitely is. That's hard. I just have one other dislike, and it's just the fact that I don't like those little plastic figurines.
Yeah, man, they're bad.
They're just so delicate. I'm always afraid of just like snapping them in half.
Yeah, 100% agree.
That's it.
Ultimately, I think this game is not really for me. I think I've played it twice, and I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it either time, but for me, it feels like such an event. And I think the game is this is one of these cases, it's one of these games where I am like almost in awe of how good of a design the game is, but I don't actually like it that much, Like I can respect the design for what it is, but it feels like so much labor, There's so much to remember. You would have to play it so many times, I feel like, to really start getting a very rewarding experience out of it. I don't know. For such an event game, there's many other games I would rather play that require the same or similar amount of energy and time investment. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I bought this after the first time I played it, and then I played it with Kirsten a couple of times, and it was like, nah,
yeah.
I'm selling this now. Thankfully, it's so popular that it was easy to sell.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
But yeah, I think I agree in the fact that to really do well at it and maybe enjoy it, you'd have to get to know it super well. You have to play it a lot. The thing is, what happened for me is after I'd gotten to that point, it just got kind of boring. Like I just didn't care anymore. So sort of a defeating cycle.
Yeah, that is too bad. But however, I think this is a game that is a lot of people's favorite game. And there are a lot of very valid reasons for that. So more power to them.
Indeed. And enough about that. How about we engage in this really long, probably board banter we're about to embark on?
I don't know if it's going to... We'll see, man. I don't know if it's going to be that long, I don't think so. We'll see.
There's a lot of things to cover that I suppose we'll cover quickly. So how about a board banter that has a lot of line items in it? How's that sound?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Physically, it takes up a lot of space, sure.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're doing a couple things here. One is we're going to analyze our top 100. In a way, I've kind of wanted to do at some point us going over our, maybe not our top 100, but our top 50 or our top 30 or something. But a lot of those games that are in that are games that have been talked about a lot anyways. So I don't know if it would be super interesting. But we gave ourselves a lot of prompts, questions from our entire top 100s that we're going to kind of go over and analyze our personal and the other person's top 100 games.
I've been looking forward to this. This will be
awesome. Fun. Okay. Let's start off with the first one then, Cody. If you want, you can just go first on everything and I'll go second. Let's talk about our top 25. And this is your prompt. Who introduced the other to more of the top 25 games? So did I introduce you to more of your top 25, or did you? Basically, this is a bragging. This is a boasting situation, right? Who can boast?
Yeah.
Boast greater.
Yeah. So for what you introduced me to in my top 25 games, you introduced me to 8 of those games. 3 of those are in the top 10, being Tapestry number 4, Dune Imperium number 9, and Stronghold number 10. And then the average rank of all those games, so if you add up like Tapestry was 4, Dune Imperium was 9, take all those and then divide it by that many games, average rank was 14.25.
Okay.
Those are my
right
stats.
In the middle. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you introduced me to 6 of mine, so I already won on that front, I guess. My number 3, Scythe, so that's higher than any of the ones I introduced you to. Number 3, Scythe. Number 5, Viticulture. Number 7, Seven Wonders Duel. Number 12, Ark Nova. Number 17, Underwater Cities. And number 18, Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Now, I did not do the fancy ranking thing, but I believe you said you did it for me. So
I did. So granted, it was 2 less games than you had introduced me to, but the average rank for you was 10.33.
Okay.
So I objectively introduced you to better games than you introduced me to.
Quantity over quality. We could have that discussion
exactly,
for a while.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we'll call it a tie. How about that?
Wow. So Stronghold was your number 10 as of December of last year.
Yeah. Let me pull up my comparison. The thing is, it like barely moved, I think. Stronghold. Okay, so it went up 2. So it was 12 last year.
Wow. And you didn't even play it last year.
I didn't even play it. I don't know what it is, dude.
Great,
it just
man.
it has such a presence. It has such clout in my heart. It's like the longer I get away from it, I'm like, I really like this. It's even better.
Well, it really does have such staying power. It's such an impactful game in a way that somebody could play something like Spirit Island, maybe never play it again, but it has such a wow, that was good.
I hope to play it again someday.
Yeah, for me, it's dropped all the way down to 37. And a lot of that is just because I don't play it anymore. I still recognize it as a good design, but I don't love it, So it's dropping.
What was the highest you had it?
The highest I had it, I believe it was in the top 20. Let's see, the year before it was 28. I'm not sure about the year before that. Okay. It might have been in the top 15 the year before that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Should we go to our second item then?
Second item, Cody. Let's talk about the most improved game this year. What game went up the most spots?
The game that went up the most spots for me was Meadow. This went up, let's see, 28 spaces, but allowing for that we have our little adjustment thing that we do. So new games that we played that year, we don't want to penalize a game underneath it for not having been played before. So in a sense, it went up 42 spaces if you take out all the new games that I had played over 2023. That is the most improved. You own it. I sold it to you. Kirsten still is unhappy about that. That's all I have to say.
So mine's a similar situation because it's something I also haven't played. It's funny, actually. So my most improved is my number 56, Arcadia Quest, which went up from 85 last year to 56. Now, there's a couple funny things about this. One is that I didn't play it I haven't played this game in like 3 or 4 years. And it went up that many spots. But the even funnier thing is that the year prior, it was my game that dropped the most. The year prior, it went from 28 to 85, and then this year it came back up to 56. So I don't even know how to explain it, man. Like, I don't even know what to say.
That is a crazy jump, dude. It's just going all over the place.
It is a good game, and I think it's in the right spot now. But yeah, so that's Arcadia Quest by 56. Okay, then let's go to the other end. Cody, most dropped. What game fell the most for you from last year to this year?
Most dropped. Oh, I'm looking on the wrong list now. Got to find the red spot. Hadara. Hadara dropped 49 spaces. With the adjustment, that's only 33 spaces, but it's still the most that dropped. It's down at 73. Last year, Hadara was... Where was it? Got to use the Control F function.
Did you say it dropped 49 spaces, or how much did you say? 39 spaces?
Let me see. It was 24 last year. It dropped 49 spaces, but with adjustment, that's 33.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of spaces.
So mine's the same. It's also Hadara. My Hadara is 88. It also dropped 49 spaces.
What?
It did, man. That's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
No, I'm sure
That
we
it's
feel
the same for us, and it dropped the same amount.
I'm sure we feel the same way. Hadara, I think, is a good design. I think I've played it enough times that I've seen everything the game has to offer. I've experienced all the strategies that are to offer in that game, and I think it's a good design. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly how I felt. It had a lot to offer at first, and it was fun, but then it just kind of tanked after you had experienced that. Mm-hmm. It's like, bye. Let me just throw this in there as just kind of a side note for something I noticed. My most dropped game last year was Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
It dropped 70 spaces, and it was my number 100 for last year. Is my number 98 this year.
What? You hate that game more now than you did last year. How is that possible?
It just went up. Yep.
Well, okay, so
I don't know how that worked.
One thing, and this will be more relevant when we talk about another question later on, but we both use Pub Meeple to compare. And then after using Pub Meeple, at least I will maybe go through and make some changes, but there's a different, it makes you think about things differently when it shows you the covers next to each other and you got to pick one or the other, right? Uh-huh. That's a different way of ranking something than just having a list and dragging and dropping. It makes you think about it differently.
I think there's an aspect of it too where the later you get in the ranking system, I think choices become a little bit sloppier. Have you heard this thing about judges making court decisions? If it's like right before lunch, judges, there's a certain % increase in them like handing out higher penalties as they become hungrier, like your judgment starts to go a little bit. And so the best time, like if you have to go to court and get judged for some reason, you want to go like in the morning or like after lunch, and the judge tends to be more lenient. So I feel like that plays out where as you're spending like literally hours doing this ranking thing, I think you get kind of tired and more sloppy. So I'm wondering how much that affects our choices over time.
Yeah.
But you can't beat it though. So
okay, Cody. Your highest new game, new to the list, which one? Did you get anything in the top 10? What was your highest?
Oh, it was just shy. My highest new game was Carnegie, landed at Space 11.
Wow. That's...
Yeah,
I was just going to say, like, it feels like mine also didn't my highest did not make it into the top 10. And that I feel like is kind of sad. It's like every year I would like to play at least one game that breaks into that, you know?
Yeah. And, it'll be interesting to see over the course of this year as I play Carnegie more, will it make its way into the top 10? And just since I just played it once right at the end of the year, it just kind of barely made it.
Well, mine is my number 16. That's Lorenzo Il Magnifico, specifically with the Houses of Renaissance expansion. I have to say that as a modifier because without that expansion, it would be lower. With the expansion, it bumped the game up. And I have to say it's gone up higher since then. So, but yeah, 16 as of December of last year.
Yeah, that's still pretty high. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, this is a little more interesting. We're not just picking and pulling off the list. What is the most underrepresented mechanism on your list that you want to see more of?
Yeah, I thought that you added this to the list, and I thought this was a curious question. And I wasn't sure how easy it would be for me to come up with an answer for that, just looking at all the 100 games. But I actually did come up with one that I feel pretty strongly about.
Okay.
A mechanism that I want to see more of is improvable actions. And specifically, we're looking at what Scythe and Wingspan do. And as a side note, there's only 2 games in my top 100 that I feel do this, and that's Scythe and Wingspan. So we have to clarify this is not improvable actions in the idea of you have ongoing abilities or like effects that trigger over time. So like a Ares Expedition, Terraforming Mars, you're putting down abilities and stuff, but those aren't making a standardized action stronger. They're just kind of adding effects. What Scythe and Wingspan do is they have a small smattering of choices you can make every turn. Those are always the same choices, but you can make those stronger. So Scythe, you can improve. You can reduce the cost of one action on the top, and then you can make a bottom action cheaper. Wingspan is you have all these 3 rows of actions, and you can put down cards in them that make those actions a little bit stronger. And there's, other than those 2 games, I can't think of any other games that implement that exact mechanic.
Maybe I can, because you actually just mentioned a game that I think does this, Cody. Ares Expedition with the expansion lets you upgrade your base actions. You have a hand of action cards that are all base actions, and throughout the course of the game, you can potentially upgrade them, exchange them out for a better version of the same action. Now, it's not a board thing where you're physically can kind of see that it's improving, but you're exchanging an action for the same action that's improved. It's essentially the same thing, right?
Ish, except it's just kind of a one-time upgrade. Whereas Scythe and Wingspan, you can continually work on making a given action better to an extent.
Some of them, not all of them.
I guess it sort of qualifies. Yeah. But the other aspect is that that's an expansion. It's not even the base aspect of the game.
Okay.
How about you?
Mine is, I would say mine would be rondel games. To my knowledge, so a rondel is basically something you're going. It's a kind of an action track that you're going through again and again with a worker, stopping at different or the same spots, whatever, and you cycle through that same track again and again throughout the game. To my knowledge, the only ones on my list currently would be Great Western Trail and Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Great Western Trail is something I haven't talked about yet. It's not on my top 100 as of last year, so actually I think I should take that off. Currently, it's one of the 2. But Viscounts is, I guess, as of 2023, the only one on my list that was that way. And since playing Great Western Trail, which I've played once, I'll maybe talk about in the next episode, I'm realizing that is a very interesting kind of fun mechanism. And I know there are more games out there that do it, quite a few more. And I'm really like, okay, this is something I want to explore more, Viscounts is ranked pretty high for me. I don't think I wrote down what it is. I think it's in my top 30 or 40. I like it quite a bit. And it just seems like it's a fun mechanism. I don't know. I don't know. Have you played any games other than Viscounts that have that in it?
Yeah, I played Glasgow. Glasgow has that. It wasn't a super incredible game, but it does have
Good to know.
a constant circle you're going in. Would you qualify Heaven and Ale with that aspect? It's a rondel that stops every round once you get to the end, but it does always reset.
I think to me, I think Heaven and Ale inarguably has a rondel aspect to it, but that's not there's a lot of other stuff going on in the game as opposed to that being the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Also, I don't like the game that much, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Next one, the game that you're most surprised made your top 100.
Yeah. I realized that I forgot this was a thing, and I kind of gave it away already, but Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring deck builder. The fact that it was 100 last year, and it dropped so many spaces, it should have gotten eked off the list as soon as I had a new game, but for some reason it kept the spot.
Not just that, the fact that you have been even more verbal about hating the game since then, and it went up didn't even stay at 100. It went up.
I don't know what it is, dude. I don't know.
That's funny.
I think maybe a lot of the games I had that were above it from the previous year is probably more them. I was just like, oh, no, I don't like this. I'd rather play Fellowship of the Ring Deck Builder over this.
Yeah,
I guess that's what
funny.
happened. Yeah. What's yours?
Mine is my number 90, which is Reef. I haven't talked about Reef in a long time, since the beginning of last year, really. Or maybe the middle, I don't know. But I remember really very strongly, passionately talking about how much I disliked that game. And reflecting on it now, I think the way I view it is that the actual system in the game is good. It's kind of like Hadara, but even worse. Whereas the actual system that the game has and that the system, the mechanisms that it implements are actually good and they work well together. But after you play the game a couple times, like that's it. Like there's nothing else to explore. There's nothing else interesting that's going to happen. So it is a good design, and I think that's why it made it onto my list. But I will probably not ever play it again, and I'm not even interested in playing it again. So there's no chance that it's going to be on the list next year. So I was kind of surprised it made it this year. I think it just made it because it is, in a way, still a solid design. Yeah.
Interesting. Be really funny if it does make it next
it goes
year.
up 2
and
spots.
then it's the game that you're even more surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Okay. Next one, the smallest footprint. Footprint-wise, the smallest game on your list takes up the least space on your table. I thought this would be an interesting one because you and I both like kind of big, bad games, right? And so kind of wondering what's the smallest, tiniest game that still made it into that 100.
Yeah. For me, Fantasy Realms. No surprise here.
Okay.
Yeah, rank 33. It's literally just one single deck of cards. That's the entire game. I guess a score pad, but that doesn't count. It doesn't count.
For me, what is that rank, by the way? Did you say
33?
30. Oh, jeez, 33.
Yeah,
wow,
dude.
that's crazy, man.
Respect it.
Mine's my number 82, which is Ganz schön clever, or That's Pretty Clever. The reason it made this is because it's a fun game. It's my number 82, but it's also a roll and write, and that's all it is. It's dice and a pad.
Okay.
So it was kind of the shoe-in for this.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a fun game.
I mean, I thought about cartographers for this option, but I think Fantasy Realms is
they're
still
close,
smaller.
but I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least for our top 100s, what's the cheapest game on your list? Again, we like the big bad ones, right? So which one is the easiest to get or the cheapest to get that still made it onto your list?
Yeah. See, I thought this was going to be the same thing. I thought it was also going to be Fantasy Realms because I think I got Fantasy Realms for like $12. My answer for you is Spies, Lies, and Supplies.
I don't even. You mentioned this game once. I don't even remember what it's about. What number is it, by the way, on your list?
It's I should look that up. I was looking it up on Board Game Oracle right now to figure out what its current price is. Spies, Lies, and Supply. Oh, this is saying it's like $12.49. Okay, maybe Fantasy Realms was like Fantasy Realms was like $12.97. I know I went through and I figured out which one was cheaper, and this one was the cheapest. Spies, Lies, and Supply. So it's just a variation of Air, Land, and Sea. So the full name is Air, Land, and Sea, Spies, Lies, and Supplies, but that's just way too long to say.
That's a terrible name for a game.
I know. And this is a tug-of-war game where there is one deck of cards where there's 3 suits, and each of those suits is 1 through 6. So 1 through 6, 1 through 6, 1 through 6. And there's 3 theaters that correspond to those suits put out in front of you. And how you win a round is you win the majority of the theaters for the round. If there's a tiebreaker, or if there is a tie, there is a tiebreaker that breaks it. But each of those cards not only have their value to them, but they have an ability corresponding to like how strong the card is. So your number 6 card that's the strongest, it has like no ability. But then like your number 1 card has a really strong ability. And that's all it is. You just flipping over other people's cards to make them reduced value, and you're just arguing for who gets to win all the theaters.
I think I know why I don't remember, because I think you have explained that before. I think the reason I didn't remember is because it does not sound very interesting. So.
Dude, it actually is though. Like it's more fun than Hanamakoji. Hanamakoji kind of had that tug of war aspect. The aspect that I'm also really impressed by with it is the fact that if you think you're going to lose the round, you can pull out early and depending on how many cards you have left in your hand, because you play a hand of like 5 cards or 6 cards, the other person gets less points for that round.
Okay.
Which is, it's kind of cool. So there's kind of a mind game that's going on with it too.
Alrighty. Well, my cheapest game on my list, also not my smallest game, although it was close. Cheapest is my number 98, barely made it, and that's Pit. You can get Pit for $10. This is a hectic, noisy, crazy card trading game. It barely makes it onto my list. It's a game I grew up playing. I love it. I love it though. Really, it's a great, just kind of crazy, trading set collection game, I guess you would say. So that's Pit. You can get it for $10. I would recommend it.
Garbage game. Not a game.
Not a game. It's a game.
I did realize I didn't tell you my rank for Spies on Supplies. 52.
Okay. All right. Twice as good, almost as Pit. So
arguably, yeah.
Okay. Almost done here. Let's move on to our 2023 plays. So you and I both this year have kind of done a lot of recording stats when we play games throughout the year. And so we're going to go over some of those. Why don't you, I don't remember the exact order, so why don't you introduce these? There's only a few that we're going to talk about.
Sure.
But,
yeah, so first, how many games you played. Not unique games, although I realize we should have done that too. We can do that if you have that stat.
I don't have that
stat. But
stat.
the number of plays that you got done this year. I had 311 plays, which is quite a drop from the 390 I had in 2022.
I actually have 2 answers to this because I felt like I needed to qualify. Instead of just saying 534, I felt like I needed to qualify that. So physical games, 298 physical plays.
Okay.
Including physical and digital plays, it's at 534, which is attributed to Dominion.
Okay.
I think I played Digital Dominion. I don't know how many times, man. So
yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, if we factor out digital plays, that's probably close to half of the games that I played last year. At least a third. I don't know. And now we do the KD, your win-loss ratio. So I had 197 wins and 99 losses for a 1.98 KD, just shy of 2.0.
You did your ratio. Okay, I didn't actually do a ratio.
Well, I can divide for you.
You can divide for me. Get on the calculator. I'll spit these numbers out to you.
What plays did you
298 total.
298.
And 153 wins. Because that's over 50%.
Oh, sorry. I'm mistyping here. So 1.05.
Slightly better.
Oh, yeah.
At least it's positive.
Yeah, slightly.
All right.
Yeah. And granted, like, probably a third of the plays I had last year were just like, Wingspan and Scythe and stuff, playing digitally, which I have somewhat mastered.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of wins there. Yeah.
Would have been interesting for you to do physical also, but
yeah.
Not worth it to figure it out now.
No, not worth it now. All right. How many new plays did you get last year? So new games that you never played before.
New games that I learned this year, or last year, I guess, 62. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. It's a lot of games. I had 36, so close to half.
I don't know what to tell you, Cody.
Half, but close to half. I don't know. I'm doing well this year. I already have like 9 or something new games played.
Yeah, I think I'm already over 10 this year, and I think this year being part of a game group is going to help with that a lot. I think I might hit 100 this year. We'll see.
Wow, that'd be crazy. How many? This isn't even on the list, but how many different games have you played? Like, do you keep track of
total
that number?
How many different games total I've played? Computing noises. I have played exactly 250 different games.
Wow. Okay. I have played exactly 230.
Ooh, it's still a tight race, Cody. Still a tight race.
But all that to say, if you played 100 new games this year, that would be
350.
Like 40. Be like 40%. Yeah. Anyway, What are we talking about?
Whatever's next on the list.
The next thing is your best month, the month where you had the most plays.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you got?
For me, this was May of 2023. In May, I played, again, 2 stats, total and then physical. So total, I played 80, had 80 different plays in May. But 50 of those were physical, so 30 were digital. But I still had 50 physical plays, so that's almost 2 a day. Not quite, but yeah.
Man, that's a busy
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. I had February for me. I had 100 plays, exactly 100, which is pretty dope. Here's the thing.
Yeah, here's the thing.
80 of those were Dominion, digital
That's so
Dominion.
funny. That's hilarious.
80 plays. I played as many games of Dominion as you had all your games your best month.
Yeah, that's
it's
sad,
also not
Cody,
saying much though
but it
because
is.
it's Dominion. No, it's the thing is I don't know if I played it since then.
Okay, and then I think, lastly, right, to finish this all off, is we have a tiny little mini list, right? That's what it is? It's a little mini list?
Yeah, a little top 3.
Okay.
How many, your most played games of the year, your top 3 most played games?
Okay, I can go
Hit us
first.
off, dude.
And I'm already going to say, I'm leaving out Dominion. We're just talking physical. Because total, physical, and digital, I played Dominion 234 times last year. Which is higher than anything else on my list, believe it or not. So,
yeah.
My actual number 3 with 13 plays was Carcassonne and all of its different, permutations, expansions and whatnot. Yeah, 13 plays.
I don't know how to go about mine because my top 3 are all digital, of course.
Of course.
And then I kind of just have guesses for like it jumps down. I'll just say digital. I'll explain the rest when we're all done. Digital number 3 was Scythe, 22 plays.
22. Okay. You know what? That's not as high as my number 1 still, Cody. So.
Wow.
But my number 2 with 15 plays, barely beat out Carcassonne, is Cartographers. Played that one a lot. Small game, easy to bust out. Played it quite a bit.
Okay. My number 2 was Wingspan, still digital, of course. 29 plays.
29. That is higher than my number 1.
Kind of pathetic compared to last year, though, because I probably had like 80 plays of Wingspan.
Not as many as you had of Dominion this year, I'll tell you what.
No, probably not.
Lastly for me, my number 1, the game I played most this year, 25 plays. That's more than twice a month. 7 Wonders Duel. Great game.
Nice. Well played, literally. My number 1, Dominion, 91 plays.
Oh.
So here's what I ran into making my list is Kirsten likes variety. She doesn't really like playing the same game multiple times in a row. And we didn't have a super strong year last year for like getting lots of physical plays. So that being said, the physical game we played the most was Fantasy Realms. And I played that 16 times.
Okay.
And then it came down to where it was hard to actually like look through everything and actually keep a tally.
Yeah.
So it probably came out to like second place would be maybe 5 plays. And that would probably be like 7 Wonders Duel, maybe 3 Sisters.
Okay.
Kind of little games like that.
Yeah.
Maybe Cartographers is probably like 3 plays.
Well,
so yeah, probably on average is like 3 or 4 plays for the better ones.
Anna and I had a weird year because we spent most of it traveling, which actually you would think would not be conducive to playing a lot of games. But the entire time traveling, we had 7 Wonders Duel, Cartographers, and Machi Koro, which Machi Koro was probably a runner-up for this list. Had all of those with us, and multiple places we went, people had Carcassonne. And so, yeah, due to that, and then of course my 200 and some odd plays of Dominion digital because we were traveling. Because of that lifestyle, we played those games specifically because those a lot of times were like some of the only games available to us, and so we just played them a lot. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have a good year this year because so far I've played just this month 7 games of Tapestry because of Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena is going to be the revolution for this year, I think.
It's your new digital vice.
Yes, my digital best friend.
As of January, this is great actually. I already have 18 plays and 14 of them are different games. So for like 14 different games.
Wow.
Or maybe 15 different games actually, and 18 total plays. So Well, all right, we're running a bit long, but that was a fun one, a fun reflective episode. Maybe at some point in the future we will do, maybe next year or the year after, we'll actually do like a top 25 or something, actually going through our favorite games, because certain games I think will be mentioned less and less often. Games we mentioned a lot towards the beginning of the podcast because they were our favorite games now aren't really things like Champions of Midgard or Viticulture, stuff that doesn't really get brought up anymore. So maybe in a year or so, it will be fun to talk about our top whatever. And we can kind of come back to these old classics that we don't talk about anymore,
Yeah, that would be pretty fun. Because at that point, too, next year, we'll probably each have like 5 solid years of gaming experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like obviously we've been gaming longer than that, but really being in the hobby. So games that are in the top 25 after that amount of time are going to be, pretty solid and worth mentioning again.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us on this trip of looking through games.
We be trippin', and remember, a more interesting theme would have been Spirits Island, where you play as stranded drunkards with asymmetric powers based off of what kind of alcohol you got drunk on. It's good to be here in the outro section with you. Let me put on my jazz voice. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the outro section. That's all I got.
I think it's important for the people to know that the Cowboys' Mike McCarthy not expected to get extensions, sources say. I'm just looking through my Google News while Cody does his outro. You done, Cody?
And see ya.